This is the Fundamental Escape Podcast with your host, Mark Fitzgerald. I'm David Werba, and this is episode 6. So we have Travis Owens on the show, who's a comedian, actor, as the lead role of Peter in the upcoming movie Audacity. So if you go to imdb.com, you'll find a pretty low rating for the movie. Can you comment on that, Mark?
Yeah, sure. The movie itself was produced by Ray Comfort, who's always been in a battle with atheists as long as I can remember. So it's just another outlet for them to share their views against him, I suppose.
Yeah, so would you call the atheists trolls in this case because they're voting the movie down?
I guess you could say that in some ways. The whole idea of trolls is quite subjective, to be honest, but yeah, it's probably a fair statement.
Yeah, but back to Travis. I enjoyed listening to his viewpoints. He's funny, he's likable, gregarious, and it was kind of interesting when he said he was raised around some Mormons, and some of his teenage Mormon friends used to talk about looking forward to banging their future wife like a rabbit.
Yeah. Yeah, quite an image there. So yeah, we basically talked a little bit about the church and sexuality and how the church suppresses sexuality and how damaging that is. He made a few points that were quite profound, but he made them in a very comical way, being the fact that he is a stand-up comedian, so that worked quite well, I think.
Okay, Mark, don't give it all away yet. Let's get to the podcast with Travis Owens.
Cool. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Fundamental Escape podcast. I have a guest today, which is Travis Owens, who is the lead actor in the new movie Audacity, which is produced by Ray Comfort. So he's also, as I say, a stand-up comedian, and I'm sure he does a few other things we might hear about. So do you want to say hi there, Travis?
Yeah. How's everybody doing?
Cool. Different time zones, obviously. So yeah, I'm starting my day, but So just starting off on the light stuff, I guess. Do you want to talk a bit about your stand-up? How did you get into stand-up, and what were some of your sort of inspirations for comedy in that?
Yeah, I could definitely go into a lot of detail, but I'll keep it short.
Oh, go crazy, man.
I didn't start off in stand-up. I had always respected the art form, so that's why I never did it. So I came out to... I did it once I remember. I did it once as a Face Your Fears kind of thing in Dallas, because I had always loved it. I always had a really, really high respect for it. So I was like, hey, I should do this before I die. And I did it once, and because I had such a respect for it, I went into it really, really prepared with stand-up. So I think my goal was to do about 5 minutes or not just die on stage. And so I ended up doing like 18 minutes or something the first time that I went on stage. Now, that 18 minutes was not good to my standards, but it was better than I thought it was going to be, and I was smart enough to invite all my friends that had to laugh. So it turned out to be better than I thought it was going to be, which was going to be awful. So anything better than the worst thing anyone's ever seen was going to be good. So I did it again and just kind of did it again and just kind of did it again because my expectations were so low. So it kind of, I was able to kind of just dip my feet in the water slowly. And then I came out to LA and I was like, hey, I'm going to, keep doing this again. And I went up at the Comedy Store at like, oh God, I think it was like at 10 o'clock on a Friday or something like that, and bombed really bad. And so then I knew that I was doing stand up when I was like bombing at the Comedy Store prime time. I was like, all right, good. This is good stuff. So yeah, so bombed at the Comedy Store, went backstage. All the comics were really, really, really supportive of me, and that's something that I wasn't getting in the acting world. And so I was like, okay, cool. This is something that I can put a lot of energy into because the community is so supportive. And so that's how I got into it, and I've been doing it for I guess about 4 years now. And So that's my primary focus and kind of where I put my artistic energy into is stand up, but it has made acting a lot easier, I can say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I think I've actually, well, not really that it's worth talking about too much, to be honest, but I've actually done stand up a few times myself.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's funny because the first time I did it is still the favorite, my favorite time, because
Yeah,
it was that experience of like that first 30 seconds when you're like, is this working? Is this not working? And then people are laughing and you're just like, oh my goodness, this is actually working.
right. It's a rush. It's a rush, and
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
said,
it is. Oh,
yeah,
totally, totally.
I just had such a respect for it, and you asked me about my influences too, and I love to talk about those, but my influences never really matched my style, and that's what was crazy. Pablo Francisco is my favorite comic working today. My favorite comic of all time is Mitch Hedberg. I love,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Oh, I love him. He's amazing.
yeah, and they don't match my styles at all, and
Yeah.
I I'm glad that they don't, because those two guys I held such in such high regard that it was, it was hard for me to get on stage and just kind of like wing it as like the drunk guy in the bar that thinks he's funny. So that
Yeah.
because of the respect for their work, it was easier for me to go, okay, if I'm going to go in and do this, then I better put some effort into it and write some material that's kind of personal and tell a story and things like that. So I didn't know that that's what I was doing at that time, but I'm glad that I did do it that way, because I don't know if I would have just gone up and been some dickhead at the bar talking about whatever I think is funny. I'm not sure that I'd still be doing it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Cool, cool, cool. So, yeah, I guess to just sort of segue into the whole Audacity thing, I guess, to cut to the chase in some ways. Um, as I say, I've got a few sort of questions just in regards to starting out. Like, when you first read the script, what were some of your initial kind of feelings and thoughts about it?
Well, when I first read the script, it was pretty close to filming, like the entire script. So I didn't see the entire script until really, really close to filming, because things change and things get rewritten and all kinds of stuff. And basically, I only saw some of the scenes where I was talking to Diana in the movie about my views on homosexuality, and nothing about that was surprising to me, because I knew it was a faith-based film. So what I had expected in my mind, that makes up the worst case scenarios of all the time, is, hey, if this is a faith-based movie and I'm a guy that's a Christian talking about my views on homosexuality, it's not going to be pretty. But then I read the script, and it was about me just trying to find a way to share my opinion on homosexuality, because of because of my ideas influenced by the Bible. So I was like, oh, this is actually lighter than I could have imagined, because
Yeah,
do
interesting.
you see what I mean?
Yeah, interesting. That's interesting that you say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's funny. I actually rewatched it last night just to kind of refresh myself, and it's yeah. Of course, I've been on IMDb and seen the reviews and things like that. There's
Oh
people
yeah.
posting all this propaganda, and
Yeah.
and I mean, I guess people would argue the film itself is propaganda as well, but which
I don't think that, this is where I disagree with everybody, and I can see people's points, but a narrative is never propaganda, really. Do you know what I
okay.
mean? Do you see what I'm saying? So a documentary can definitely be, because there are opinions of people representing themselves and directors representing
Yeah.
themselves truly on the street and what have you, in a regular everyday situation. Now, I also get how some people who are on one certain side of the issue would see it as propaganda, but religion is not winning the argument on homosexuality, no matter what we think. You know what I mean? No matter what they think. I'm not religious. I mean I consider myself not religious whatsoever.
Did you grow
But
up? Did you grow up religious
I
at
grew
all?
up
Or?
very religious, so it's interesting that we're actually talking with your background of following Ray. I grew up devout Southern Baptist.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
wow. Okay,
yeah,
say no more.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I suppose I say propaganda in the sense of I guess this is me picking up on all the very very subtle metaphors and analogies in the movie, like
Sure.
the elevator falling and all that kind of thing,
Right.
and it's just like and then it's sort of and then it is a bit different obviously to a traditional sort of film in the sense of it's obviously got the clips and things in the middle of the movie that are
Yeah.
live, real people talking, so in that sense I would say propaganda in that regard, kind of.
Sure. Yeah. You could definitely say that. I actually forgot to even put those into consideration. So you're right. Yeah,
Well, you weren't part of that filming obviously, so.
yeah, exactly. I didn't even know that was in the movie till I saw the movie. So
Oh really? That's
No.
yeah, see, that's did that change your opinion at all knowing that, or?
it didn't. I mean, it doesn't really change my opinion. These are they're the problem that I've faced with having conversations with people, albeit a few very, very reasonable people that actually understand the industry and what acting truly is that if I get into a conversation with certain people, you just start going around in circles, and it's never ending. It's the conversation of a religious person going, okay, well, if you believe in evolution, then prove it. And the person going, well, I can't prove it because I wasn't there. That's what science is. You know what I mean? So it's that circular kind of conversation where people are just end up going, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, and you get nowhere.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
that's the issue that I face with the conversation about the movie in general.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I've been thinking about. I mean, I just wanted to say to you, I feel like, you, and I know your co-star Molly as well. Like, she's pro gay marriage and everything as well, isn't she?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've seen some of the tweets and things, but it's quite profound to me in a sense, the fact that both of you would take the roles and do what you did, because it in my mind at least, I guess it opens up a pretty interesting space for questions, because I don't know, it was one of the questions I was keen to ask you is, like, I've had experiences with friends and family who are Christian who I've talked to, and I've said, oh, I'm talking to Travis Owens about, from Audacity, and they're like, oh, fantastic, and I'm like, yeah, he's not, he doesn't believe these things in the movie, and they're like, oh, what? Like, and there's this kind of moment, it's like this awkward, like, oh, really? Because
Right.
most, I mean, I'm telling you, obviously, I'm sure you'd be aware, but most Christians would assume, watching the movie, that you have the same views.
Well, you can look at this from a few ways, and here's the ways that I look at it. Number one, that is a compliment to me, because I take it artistically as a compliment from them, because that means that my work and my performance that I put into the movie did exactly what I expected it to do when I started putting in the effort and preparing for the role and things like that. So that's one thing that comes into play. Now, the surface level of the conversation, the surface level answer is acting is acting. Whether I disagree with it or agree with it, that's what it is. And my propensity as an artist is to take roles that I disagree with, because I don't like roles that have no flaws. So if I got my choice, I would play the antagonist, the character actor, the funny, crazy best friend over the leading man any day, because that's where I think that I have some ability artistically. That's where I think that my talent lies, in that. And I like that. I enjoy that. But the deeper answer that I didn't get to discuss with Hemant from the Friendly Atheist, is the industry. The industry has changed. It's not the same industry that it was 15 years ago. The industry today, it's like I'm competing with. I'm getting called in for a feature that's being filmed, and it's um, and we're auditioning with other named actors that have TV shows named after them, their real life name. So I can't mention the names, obviously, for their
Yeah, yeah.
privacy and security, but I'm not even a B-list actor. I'm not even a name actor, and I'm competing for the same role of someone who has a TV show named after them, and that guy's taking the same amount of money that I'm taking, the same amount that I'm taking, and
Wow.
that person is still relevant. And then I go into another audition for some shitty horror film that's not even going to hit a movie screen. They tell you before you audition for it, this will be released straight to DVD. And I'm auditioning with people in the same room, sitting next to them as a no name, next to a person who has a huge following, and this person's a blogger. That's who I'm competing with, is like celebrity bloggers that are just called in because these studios just want somebody who's going to bring people into the seats to see the movies, and they don't give a shit whether they've acted before in their life or not. That's
Right.
the industry. So these people that are coming to me and insulting me openly on the internet, thinking that I could just say no, are way out of line. Do you see what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. No, it's funny you say that. I actually saw something on Twitter the other day. Someone, calling you out on the whole movie thing, and I was like, "What the heck? Like, this is nuts." Like,
Right.
it is a lose-lose situation, and you can't. What can you do? And I had heard you. I think it was on the Friendly Atheist podcast where you talked about wanting to take a role that wasn't you, sort of thing, and it was interesting because I was thinking about your character Peter in Audacity, and I was thinking, as I mentioned, I followed Ray Comfort's ministry for sort of 5 years, quite religiously, admittedly, and part of the whole reasoning, my podcast is called The Fundamental Escape, and it's sort of like the whole kind of rethinking. It's not just about religious sort of thought, but that sort of idea that we get handed beliefs growing up, and they sort of shape the neural pathways in our mind, and
They
before
do,
we
and it's
even
scary. It's a scary
yeah
thing.
yeah. So I just, long story short, I guess, but it was around 2002 or 3, I think it was. I came across some videos by Ray Comfort, the street, where they go out and interview people and things,
Right.
and I was just absolutely compelled. I was just blown away. I was like, wow, you can just do that? Like, you can just go up to people and start talking about faith? Like, I was like,
Right.
far out. And so I had that, I don't know whether it's genetic or what, that I just had this impulse to go, oh man, I'd like to do that. So I totally did. And I did it, as I say, for about 5 years. And it's really interesting. As you probably are aware, Ray Comfort's very methodical in the way he teaches people to share the gospel and things like that. And so when I first started going out, it was very sort of one-sided. It was like, I've got this message to talk to you about, and I don't really care what you have to say. And it was very one-sided. And then sort of a couple of years into it, I started actually listening to people and hearing what they had to say, and sort of humanizing people more. But I want to get back to you, Travis. We talked before the podcast about the subject of being lost.
Yeah.
Can you maybe expand on that a bit?
I've never had a moment in my life where I've been scared of the unknown. I've always embraced the unknown. The unknown makes me feel bigger, not insignificant. So by me feeling smaller, it puts me at ease. Religion, that's opposite of. So if, like what you said when you had sought out kind of the videos about Ray. It is empowering for someone who's lost, someone who doesn't have, who hasn't really found like that specific purpose of theirs in life, because you've now joined a community that fully embraces your existence and you're a blank slate for them. So that's what I kind of take religion to be, to a person that's kind of like open to like, wow, I need some kind of like jump start to what I'm going to focus on for the rest of my life, or what I'm going to be motivated or inspired by for the rest of my life. I've been an artist, so I've never been that person that's always been like, hey, I'm floating out in the middle of the ocean. I need the Jesus ship to come by and throw me an oar. I've never been that person because I've never been lost, even when I was religious, even when I wasn't religious, even when I had doubted God coming out of being religious, even when I wake up now and go, I have no idea if there is a God. I don't know.
Yeah.
I find significance in that, and I find that empowering because
Yeah.
I'm alive, I'm thinking, I'm discovering, I'm trying to find answers. It's just that's a different feeling for me than it is for Christians that are looking for something.
Well, I would kind of argue that much of what you said sounds like the Christianity I would prefer anyway, to be honest.
Right, exactly.
And that's what I found, and that's interesting because, it's such a big deal. I'd be curious to hear from you, I guess, when you sort of step out of the traditional views that you get handed growing up. For some people, it can be very traumatic. It's like, it totally can be, and,
it is.
For me, I still find it difficult. I still find myself, because I have to, because I've asked a lot of very forward questions and progressive questions, about things like gay marriage and things like that. And, you still have to interact with your friends and family who aren't in the same place. And you find yourself talking with them, and you're just like, you get dragged back into this way of thinking. You're just like, oh, and you have to sort of remind yourself, you're like, oh, no, that's not me anymore, It's interesting, So
yeah, it's really interesting. The gay argument for me is like the reason that I did I did the role after much doubt and caution and consideration, and asking my friends and family, who some of are gay, if I should do the part, and then saying to do what I think I should do and supporting my decision to do it. The thing that was interesting is, damn it, I forgot what I was saying. I haven't had enough coffee.
It's all right. That's all right. I can jump in. It's all right. It's interesting. I was actually talking to a family member last night who is gay, and she was, really open, and, we have this really open sort of conversation about things, and it was interesting when I, like, obviously the whole premise of a movie like Audacity is essentially saying, being gay is a choice. Like, that is a fundamental premise of the movie, which to me is absolutely absurd, personally. Like,
well, it's not. I don't know if it's absurd or not, because you have to find a ridiculousness in someone that's religious saying that they know anything about sexuality. That's ridiculous. That's
a good starting point.
Ridiculous to me. That's literally going to that's going into your operation for your brain tumor to a dentist and saying, what can you do for me? And then the dentist is like, I don't know, I'm a dentist. So the fact that anyone religious would ever have anything in the world to say about sexuality, when it is the thing that they suppress more than anything in the world, is unbelievably mind-blowing to me. To the point where it's hilarious. Like, I can't even begin to get offended by it, because I'm like, what the fuck are you doing talking to me about sexuality at all, ever? So that's something that's so crazy to me. So it's like, I get why people would be offended by someone coming to them and saying, this is your problem and it relating to sexuality.
Yeah.
I completely understand that. But I also understand why they would think, I don't agree, but I understand why they would think it was a choice or that it's a spell that the devil puts on you or whatever,
Yeah.
because they don't know shit about sexuality.
Yeah. 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 No, I find it hard to disagree with that point.
Yeah.
It's although I can think of there are some good voices out there that are saying interesting things, but it's for the most part that was actually something I was talking to somebody about recently, about just how terribly bad the church has been in regard to sexuality overall anyway. Because the whole idea is, when you suppress something, when you say no, you can't do this, it becomes this big, like, heavy-handed taboo sort of thing. All it does is make you want to do it more. It just completely counters the desired result, sort of thing.
It's just really weird. I remember, I remember high school. Where I went to high school in Southeast Texas, it was really, really, it was a really high population of Mormon people, and like devout Mormon. I don't know either. It's really strange to me how they found Southeast Texas like a settlement, but I remember in school so much, like in high school, and I wasn't a promiscuous kid at all in high school. I think I had my like first sexual encounter at like 17 or 18, which is like generally pretty average for a person that's not religious. But I remember in high school, the Mormon kids were always talking about openly about how they could not wait to get married so they could just bang like rabbits. And I was like, do you guys understand how weird this is? This is so weird. That this is your next thing in life, like your very next thing in life. You have planned, you've already done it in your head. It's not even an experience anymore, and then you're just done for life. Like that's what's in the cards for you, because that's what they told you in the book, is just to start reproducing, and that's it.
This is something that is interesting as well, because I, especially being someone who followed Ray for a long time, he says things like, in his videos, he says things like, oh, this world is just a waiting room and we're just waiting to die so that God can judge us. And I'm just like, okay, that sucks all the fun out of life.
All of it. Even if it is. So even if it is, let's take this. Let's take the thing that you need to do discussing religion is you need to take everybody's side into consideration. And then if you find, after all the questioning and all the wonderment is gone, then you can say that one side is crazy or not, but you have to take it into consideration to keep yourself sane in a religious disagreement, argument, debate, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say that it is a waiting room. Let's say that. Let's say we go to heaven, whatever that is, and they get in, we don't get in, whatever. Okay, we know how that goes. But let's say that us in a world that we are conscious in, functioning in daily, behaving with other humans, making our way through the food chain, doing things that we feel that our purpose is for this conscious state that we are in called life. Let's say that we go through that, we do what we want to do, and then we get to death and there's nothing there. If you are a person who's treated it as a waiting room, you have lost.
Yeah.
You've lost. You've wasted an entire life being inspired by something that just fell through. It fell through.
Yeah.
Now, you can live both ways, where you are conscious, you enjoy life, you take risks, you have opportunities, you discover the good, the bad, you have hills, valleys, it's the whole roller coaster.
Yeah.
And then you believe what you believe, you get to heaven, you get to get into the VIP section or whatever. But do you see what I mean? There's one way where you for sure could lose. You for sure could lose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both. One way.
Yeah.
It's very weird to me.
There's something recently that sort of got under my skin a little bit. You may have seen it. It's actually it's on YouTube. It's a a clip of Jim Carrey talking at a university, like graduation sort of thing.
Right.
Have you possibly seen that at all?
I have, and this is funny that you brought Jim Carrey up. I love Jim Carrey. I love him to death. Love him to death. He is my he's actually my inspiration for getting into acting and comedy.
Oh, wow.
He's my inspiration. But I like old Jim Carrey. I like Jim
Oh,
Carrey that just
okay.
laughed. I like Jim Carrey that wasn't weird. I like Jim Carrey I like Jim Carrey that had flaws. I like Jim Carrey that was human. I like Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
You know, I understand what Jim Carrey does is like it betters himself personally, and it's ultimately about yourself and your journey
right.
to enlightenment and whatever he studies. I'm a meditator as well. I study transcendental meditation, but that doesn't change me as a comic. It's like to be funny, you still have to have flaws, and you still have to have
Yeah,
strong opinions, and
yeah,
you still have to jump in head first, and you still have to have
yeah,
a lot of humility, and you have to not be bulletproof, and you have to possess all these things. And he's lost it on this journey to enlightenment, and I hope that he finds his way back to the fun-loving, crazy, wacky Jim Carrey that we all love him for.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that kind of blew the wind out of my sails in what I was about to say.
Yeah, no, but I've
No,
seen the
that's right.
clip. I know,
No, no,
you know
no.
the
Well,
clip.
there's just a part in that speech where he talks about his dad, and he says how his dad wanted to be a comedian, but he said he took a safe job as an accountant, and he said
Right,
after a few years they let him go from that job, and he says, I learned many things from my dad, but the one thing I learned was you can fail at doing what you don't want to do, so you might as well try doing what you do want to do.
right.
And I don't know, that's just really kind of getting into me at the moment. I'm just like, especially, and I have to say, and I'm sure you can empathize because, you know, of your background, but, you know, growing up very, very Christian, like I say, it does really suck the fun out of life, you know? It really does.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, I'm 32 at the moment, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm consciously having to choose to get that back and to go, no, this is, you know, this is my life, and I'm allowed to enjoy it. I'm allowed to see the wonder and the beauty in the world and enjoy it, sort of thing.
Yeah. So what in your experience, as you would say, when you followed Ray for however long, I think that it's something happens that triggers a person to detach from religion, and I think it's usually something that's like a non-negotiable, because it was for me. What do you remember? What your thing was that
Oh
triggered you
dear,
to like go and kind
you've
of push
asked me
away?
that question. Okay. No, I've been open about things on the podcast anyway, but long story short, I essentially had a complete breakdown psychologically.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah. So I just collapsed. I mean, it was 5 years and then burnout basically. And I mean, the way I describe it is, you know, it's almost like the bricks that you've built your life with just crumble, and you can't rebuild them in the same way. Like after
Right.
that experience, there was literally no way that I could just go back to seeing things the way I did, if that makes sense. You know, like your whole world, you have to navigate this whole new terrain, sort of thing. And it is traumatizing. It's like, whoa. So yeah, so it was a heavy thing for me. It was massive. It was really intense. And
Wow.
yeah. I mean, there's a Franciscan priest named Richard Rohr. He says that transition in life usually happens either through great love or great suffering. And
Right.
I think that's totally true. I think for me it was a little bit of both, but there's
Yeah, for me, I remember mine specifically too. Mine was actually at a very early age. I think I was about 18 or 19, and by the time I was 21, I had had three very very good two best friends pass away in like the span of 2 years. Um, which wasn't. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and it's hard for anybody to get through, especially at that age. But what really pushed me away from religion, like push as hard as I could, arms locked out, completely, was at the funerals when they were doing the services with for my friends. One of the preachers got the kid's name wrong in his eulogy, and then in all of the eulogies and all of them, it was a sales seminar to be like, hey, don't end up like this kid. Where are you going to go when you die? And I was just like, oh, so we're doing a sales seminar over my friend's dead body. Cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm out. See
Oh
ya.
man.
So it was anger for me to be able to go, because my girlfriend wonders a lot, like why because she's Jewish, but she doesn't practice. She's just culturally
Right.
Jewish,
Right.
and she never understood how like religion religion envelops like culture in the South. It's more than a culture. It's not something that you could just like toggle off and on. You're a sinner if you like lose touch with it. So she never really got that, because the Jewish faith, the non you know the non the non-devout Jewish faith is not of that. So she always wondered why it made me mad to discuss it, and sometimes I would get like my fuse kind of like fired up, and I try to tell her that, and she finally gets the point now. But it's like it made me really mad because it's used as like a sales pitch sometimes,
Yeah. Oh, totally, totally.
which you
Well,
get.
look, it's funny you talk about sales. My job is sales, and I actually, you might laugh when I say this, but I actually attribute my training in sales to Ray Comfort.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like he taught me how to be a salesperson. It's
Yeah.
crazy. This just before I forget that what you kind of just said there does segue a little bit into something I wanted to bring up about Audacity, which was the scene in the movie where Diana is talking to Peter and saying, "Oh, my brother Eric has cancer," and she's like crying. It's like real emotional,
Right.
and Peter goes, "Oh, okay, right, I'll pray for you," and then he basically just takes off, and I'm like, wow, like it was like I just couldn't believe it. Like I was like, here's this opportunity for, and again, this like, oh, it just blows my mind. I was like, there was a chance for like a human moment right there to go, holy shit, I'm real. I mean, obviously they weren't going to have swearing in the movie, but to go,
Right.
wow, that's really painful, and I'm sorry that you're going through this. Like, is there anything I can do? But no, it's just like, hey, I'll just talk to Jesus about it and see you later. And I was like, wow, like, and it's something that was another thing, like I say, because of what I've been through in my experience as well, like going through some pretty painful stuff. You just realize how ill-equipped people in the church, I guess not even just, I guess sometimes people in general, not to just focus on Christianity, but like, we don't really know what to do with people in pain. I think we have this immediate impulse to try and fix people, and
Right.
it's really hard. And I just thought that was really interesting. I mean, I wouldn't have
Well,
expected.
it's one of those. It's one of the things that we had kind of like touched on a little bit earlier, where it's like you got to consider that side of it. You know what I mean? Even if you disagree with it, because you have to see a person's intent and their motive. So if the utmost, best, highest possible thing that a person could gift you with is like everlasting life and the information to save yourself. So let's talk from a religious standpoint. If that's the best thing that they could do, then they have, by their standards, done the best possible thing
Oh,
for
sure.
you. Which is why in the podcast with Hemant, I kind of like had like an internal question that I thought of like on the spot in the podcast, where I was like, I would love to know if like Ray was like afraid, like if he was fearful that there was like a quota that he wasn't meeting with like all the souls that he wasn't saving. And Ray's pretty open, and Ray's honest about questions that you ask him, whether he agrees with them or disagrees with them. And he actually emailed me back and he was like, I'm really, really fearful. I lose sleep that I'm not saving enough people.
Oh my goodness.
But it's like, you see a different side of it when you see that, because you're like, wow, that is just so like that's such a burden because I'm not that person to imagine like to see clearly see a person's motive and to clearly see their intent and their reason why they do what they do, whether you disagree with it or not. It's like profound to me. Do you know? Like so for Peter to say that, it's like, I mean, Ray wrote the script, so I didn't write the character. Ray wrote that character. So for that to be the line of I'll pray for you, like agreeing that I'll pray for her, I think that that is the best thing that Peter probably thought that he could do, which is strange because that's not at all what I would say.
Oh, totally, for sure. No, I get that completely. And I have to say, it is quite surreal to me. I've never talked to an actor on a podcast before, but it is funny to talk about your character and knowing that it's not you, but it is you. It's just kind of weird. I just had to say that.
Well, I mean, those are the parts in the script that,
Like,
you know, it's tough. It's a challenge. It's something that you never ever do in your natural behavior and your natural progression through life, you know, in an art form that is based on, you know, film acting is based on making it organic to you and connecting it to yourself. And when I just am looking at a character, I'm going like, wow, what do I have in common with this character at all? And just kind of sitting with the script and going,
yeah.
what a huge challenge. What a huge challenge I have to figure this guy out and to make him real to me.
Yeah,
You know?
I think you definitely, in regards to like, you know, resonating with that character, I think you definitely pulled it off in the sense of connecting. Like, you definitely came off with that genuine sense of empathy, and that, you know, there was that awkwardness of like, you know, when Peter was confronted with the issue of homosexuality, he's like, oh, it's like this. And this is the thing with Christianity today, because they it's such a big thing, you know, like with social media especially, everyone's connected and you can't hide away from it. And he's going, oh, I know that the Bible says being gay is wrong and blah blah blah, and but at the same time I don't want to be thought of as a jerk, you know. And it's this like huge dilemma. And it's like, I mean, I don't know what it was like for you growing up, but you know, for me growing up in the church, I grew up in a time where like homosexuality just wasn't even talked about. It was like literally a non-issue because we just didn't even address it at all. But now it's like, it's in your face, it's here to stay kind of thing. I mean, it's been here obviously the whole time, but it's like, it's not going anywhere and you have to deal with it. So this would be interesting to get your thoughts on. There's a guy, do you know Jay Baker by any chance? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. His parents were Jim Baker and Tammy Faye. They were like big evangelists on TV like back in the 80s and stuff. But he's a real interesting character. But I came across a clip on YouTube like years and years ago of him talking in this African American church, and he basically, you know, came out to them and said, you know, I'm approving of gay marriage sort of thing. I'm okay with it. And this room just went dead silent. Like, it was just like you could hear a pin drop, you know. And it was incredible because, you know, he kind of made the connection. Like, he's saying, you guys are people who know yourselves what it's like to be marginalized and kicked to the edges sort of thing. And yet you don't want that, you know, you're not prepared to advocate the same for other people. And it was a really profound thing. And he quoted, I think it was Martin Luther King, who said, he goes, it's not the cries of our enemies that we remember, but it's the silence of our friends.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then he goes,
oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And he goes, I can't stay silent for my friends anymore. And
wow.
he was like choking up. It was really emotional. It was like far out. So that for me was, and I, you know what? I had a friend of mine who I grew up with who watched me watching that clip and basically later on said to me, like, I'm really concerned for you. I think you might be going to hell, blah, blah, blah. Like, just for, like, empathizing with that. Like,
Right.
so it's,
Wow.
it gets crazy, man. It gets so crazy. And it's interesting to me, like, the whole sort of, I mean, people can be jerks on either side of the argument sort of thing. And I like so much of what you've said in this conversation because, I had someone on Facebook the other day who posted something along the lines of, if you're against gay marriage, etc., you're automatically a bigot and a homophobe. And I'm like, well, no, you're not. That's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, generally is a very powerful word that's not used often enough.
Yeah.
It's really like, you're not speaking for everybody, but you are speaking for most people. Most people that are against gay marriage, like adamantly against it, and are just disgusted by it and offended by it, generally are bigots. Generally.
Yeah.
Now, are there one or two or three or four, or do I know a person extendedly that is against it, but's like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to rub it in your face. I just don't agree with it. Do what you want to do. I'm also going to be your friend. It's just something I don't agree with.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that person, but that doesn't mean that that person's a bigot or an asshole or intolerable or hateful.
Yeah.
They just disagree with something. And I disagree with what they're saying, but it doesn't mean that they're the worst person to walk the planet.
Exactly. Well, it's funny you say, I mean, like the last episode of the podcast, I spoke to Gavin McInnes. I'm not sure if you know who that is, but he was the co-founder of Vice magazine. And yeah, he's really, really, really interesting guy. Really open about his opinions, like has zero filter when it comes to speaking his mind. And we talked about all kinds of things like feminism and gay marriage and all kinds of things, religion, politics. But he sort of made the same point that you just did, where he talked about the idea of, speaking generally versus universally.
Right.
And,
it's so easy. It's so easy. It requires no intellect to say, generally, this group of people think this way. It's like, yeah, generally, sure. Not everyone. Generally. Generally, religious people are not fun to hang out with. Generally. I mean, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, I could sit and talk about I think religion's fascinating.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad you're into talking about it because I wasn't sure how. I mean,
it's just, but it's like the argument is so funny. Do you know what I mean? The argument for the movie. People argue about the movie, and they treat it like it's some big, huge summer blockbuster, and it's a micro budget Christian film.
Yeah.
That is made for Christians. It's not. I mean, Ray didn't want to premiere this at the Pride Parade. It's made for Christians. So the people that are so just against the movie, it's like, I get it. I understand why you're against it, but it was made for the Christian church crowd, and then they want to talk about how it's going to influence some young mind, and I was like, not today, because they're all, the funny thing is that they're all like 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old people that were in that boat one day, sadly enough. And I feel really bad that they were, alienated in an environment just because they went to church. It's like, I know that exists. I'm from that small town. I had that conversation with my friend who was afraid to come out in that small town because of that. I get it. These people think that I don't understand that, and I do. Yeah. I understand it, but it's a different world today that is, I mean, you have gay people that are openly gay all over primetime television. You have Ellen, you have tons of people who are big time celebrities. You got RuPaul, who is openly out on her show.
Yeah.
With the drag show and cross-dressers and transgenders and Caitlyn Jenner and all these huge voices that are just all over Fox News and CNN and NBC and all of these personalities. It's like, you're inundated with these people who are saying, hey, there's nothing wrong with doing what you do.
Yeah.
And more people are going to see those people always than some Christian movie that they weren't going to watch anyway, but because of a retweet, they know exists. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, totally. And the reality is, when it comes to Ray Comfort's movies, there's only, even within Christianity, there's only a select group that's going to watch it anyway, because he doesn't have a great following within Christianity either. So, I just wonder, in some ways too, though, like, we have, I mean, it's like, as I say, on the last episode with Gavin McInnes, we talked about the subject of feminism, and he was really blunt about it. He was like, he goes, well, sure, there was a time where, things needed to change, like women needed the right to vote and things like that, but he's like, now it's just got to the point where it's ridiculous. Like, he's like, there was a campaign to ban the word bossy, like.
Right.
And it's just like, this is utter bullshit. Like, what the hell is going on? And he's just like, it's crazy. And all this kind of talk about like rape culture and all this kind of stuff, and it just gets absolutely nutty. And he said to me, he goes, for the most part, like a few years back, he sort of used to laugh at these kind of views and stuff like that. And then he gets to a point where he goes, wait a minute, you guys are actually like getting momentum here and changing things. And what you're doing is like ruining people's lives. Like, it's just insane. And I think, no, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, it almost feels like things have gone too far the other way sometimes, where it's like, okay, for the most part, gay people are totally accepted now. Of course, there's still bigots out there. There's still racists out there. Like, that's not going to go away 100% ever, I don't think. But like, I just feel like sometimes things go the other way sometimes.
Well, as a comic, I see people who don't want to get offended all the time, but it's like bleeding into society in all regards now, and I really hate it, because like Jerry Seinfeld has just openly said that he doesn't do colleges and he can't do colleges because everyone's offended. Jerry Seinfeld.
I know, that's nutty. Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld says that he can't do colleges because people are too offended. The guy who doesn't have an F word in his set has said that. That's unbelievable to me, how across the board no one wants to be offended, and everyone thinks that if you offend me...
Ricky Gervais says, he talks about the idea of offence, and he says nobody has the right not to be offended, Right. But we live in this culture where people... We live in this world where people think they do have the right not to be offended. It's insane.
Well, and like I said, it's just... offensive on a level of like, you take something personally, something like that. Like, that's a different level than it bleeding into issues that matter. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole feminism thing. It's like, well, I have jokes in my bit about that they're not about feminism specifically, but they touch on the realm of like feminism existing, where my dad, when he picked up my mom and they started dating, like the thing that he said to my mom is way different than anything I could say to a girl now. And they have an amazing marriage.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's so, like, my girlfriend told me the other day that there was some person that's like there was some feminist that is saying like that women have to stop saying the word just. That's hilarious to me. Like, women to men in the professional working environment have to stop going in and saying like, hey, I just want to check on this project. Just want to get your opinion. Like, it's like, I'm so feeble and I know I don't matter, but and I was like, yeah, if you can't say just to a person because they treat you a certain way, that's not because of feminism. That's because that person's an asshole. That's it. I was like, it's like, you have people that are, just like I said last time I talked to anyone about this, you have people that are religious and you have people that are gay. And then you have people that take both too far and take both way too personally. and those people are assholes. They're not of the community. They're just
Yeah,
assholes.
yeah.
That's it.
I suppose as well, I mean, being a comedian, you would know that more than anyone in some ways. Like, comedy is about not taking yourself too seriously, because you can't.
Oh yeah,
You know,
right.
you can't. It's. I mean, I think that's why comedy is almost the voice of reason in society in many ways, because it's like going, guys, like, chill out. It's okay.
Comics, and I'm talking about like big rooms in LA with like tourists that come in and things like that. Comics in general are so tired of crowds coming in, prime time, drinks in hand, like scared of being offended. It serves no purpose in that realm of like, I'm coming to be entertained, I'm coming to hear your thoughts on something. I'm coming to learn about you as a performer, entertainer, comic, and then those people getting offended. It's almost like we want to sit there and we want to just say the most offensive things, because we're not going to get anything done if you're in the room and you're scared to get offended. We're definitely not going to tiptoe around our own material that we've worked for years in different rooms to not offend you by it. We're not going to do that. We're not going to waste our time with that. So now it's about just finishing it off and pissing you guys off and then getting off stage, because what's the point?
Yeah.
I mean, you came to see us. You came into our world to, it's like I saw some like devout Christian on my newsfeed on Facebook yesterday say that they went to see Jim Gaffigan and they walked out because it was so tacky. I was like, you don't ever get to leave your house again if Jim Gaffigan offended you, ever.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, it was years ago I watched the, Ricky Gervais bit that he does about the Bible on his Animals DVD.
Oh, brilliant.
It's brilliant. I know, it's gold, eh? Like, it's just amazing. And I mean, I watched that as a Christian and I was like, I can't fault this. Like, this is brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
It's so good. It's just the way he deconstructs it. It's just incredible. And I've heard people say things, they say sometimes you find yourself, you'll laugh at something and it will betray what you thought you believed, sort of thing. Like, you can't sort of fake that. You just go, oh. And it was someone else, I think it was a famous comedian, who said it's at the moment of laughter when you're most susceptible to a new idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's totally disarming. It really is, and that's the good thing about it.
Yeah.
When a person just settle in and allow themselves to have fun.
Yeah.
I might be biased as a comic, but it is disarming, and it's a different world. It's a different world today. So when you can get a room full of people that can collectively let go and laugh. There's so much bullshit that goes on, and like, I can't speak for New Zealand specifically, but there's so much bullshit that goes on in America right now, from the argument on gun control to religion to same-sex marriage to feminism to all of these issues that just rattle people's cages so hard. And when you can get those people in a room and they can just let go of that for a second and just collectively laugh, it gives you hope for the world. As a room full of people, as a comic, it's like, because I didn't always believe that like laughter is the cure for everything. It's like, no, sometimes penicillin is, but it's like, but when you're faced with today's society and you get them in a room together and that happens, it's like, you kind of live the reality of maybe it is after everything.
Yeah, well, yeah, totally. I mean, it's funny. I've got a friend of mine, actually. He's he does stand-up comedy as well, and he's also, he actually is a professional clown, but he he's like a team of people, like they go in as clowns, they go into like, hospitals where kids are literally dying, and he said to one of the nurses one time, he said, I really don't feel like we're doing anything, like what's, how are we helping, kind of thing. And she turned to him and said, you have no idea how much you're helping these kids, like I've never seen them so happy, sort of thing. Like,
wow.
It's really amazing. So it's pretty
God, that's phenomenal.
It's pretty cool. So unless you had any sort of final thoughts, I don't want to drag things out too long, I guess, but it was really cool to talk to you, Travis. Eh?
Yeah, yeah. Unless you had anything else to ask or talk about the movie, it's just
Yeah.
the movie is just it's a discussion that's ongoing. It's going to be everybody running around in circles. I'm the bad guy because I took a part, and no matter if I support the community or not support the community, I'm still wrong. So I get that it's a lose-lose. It was an acting challenge for me, and people are going to think what they're going to think. And funny enough, with the Supreme Court ruling, I think that people are going to have more freedom to choose, and I believe that they should have freedom to be who they are and to marry whoever they want. And these things are trumping religion every day, and they will continue to do so. And at some point, religion's just going to run out of gas, even talking about the argument on sexuality at all, because it's not their arena. It never has been their arena. It's not. And
if I could throw in I'm not sure if you know the author Rob Bell, but he wrote a book called Sex God, which is one of the best religious books on sexuality that does exist. So there is at least one that I could recommend.
I got to check that out. Cool.
Yeah, well, he wrote a book in 2011 as well called Love Wins, which was interesting because obviously when the Supreme Court ruled on gay marriage, everyone was hashtagging Love Wins. That was a real big book that got me sort of thinking as well, because it sort of rethinks the whole heaven hell kind of thing as well. So it's quite sort of theological, but really, really interesting. So that was a bit of a game changer. So
yeah, sounds like a great read.
Yeah. There was one other final question just to wrap things up. I was going to say, did you have any sort of interesting responses from friends or family once they'd seen the movie, if they did at all?
No, nothing that I didn't expect at all.
Okay.
they thought they thought the performance was good, which was great. They were complimentary of that. Family's supportive no matter what, so they like the movie. My brother has seen it. My gay brother's seen it, and he just said the same thing that my other gay friends said. Good performance. It's like they,
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Nothing.
Sounds like they're
shocking.
reasonable human beings.
Yeah. You don't find it a lot lately.
It's a dying art form.